Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at gcnlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Dr. Shealy, are you blissed?
Happy blissful New Year, Vincent.
Hey, happy New Year, Dr. Shealy. It's great to hear your voice.
Always.
Hey, yes, we've been doing this for years, Dr. Shealy. Years.
Time passes.
Wow, time flies. Over 5 years, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. So what's new with you, Dr. Shealy? Would you like to start out with that?
Well, of course, I'm hoping to settle the absolute exactness of the adrenomedullin study this week. Mm-hmm. I won't know it till I talk to Dr. Durham personally in a couple of days. But we're going to start that as soon as I can be sure that it's all set up. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, that's my most exciting project for the year.
Okay, you want to give us a description of exactly how this goes, who's involved, and what it entails?
Right. Well, adrenomedullin is a hormone that is essential at a low level for optimal health. A study in Italy recently was reported that in this city where the average person lives well into their 90s, 20 years longer than the average American, that the individuals had an adrenomedullin level equal to 20-year-olds. Now, this is one of the very few hormones that needs to stay low. Most hormones drop as you mature and age. Mm-hmm. This one goes up as an indication of excess stress, inflammation, etc. And so in this community where they found people to have the level of 20-year-olds, 70 plus years later, that's very exciting. And so we are going to offer individuals who are interested, no charge, 36 hours in our scalar room over a 4-week period. So they did 9 hours a week for 4 weeks and then measure the adrenomedullin before and after. I believe that this will lower adrenomedullin level, which means it's making you younger. And if we prove this, then we know that the easy, simple way to find out how, badly or well you're aging is to measure adrenomedullin.
It sounds fantastic. And as a matter of fact, I would think that should you find the results that you're looking for, that they'll have to widen the road to your office.
A standing line all the way over to I-65 or bypass 65. Whatever.
Yeah. Well, that's wonderful. And so you'll let us know when the exact date is. Will you be telling us next week, next Wednesday?
Oh, yes. Definitely hope to announce that not later than next week. In fact, I'll announce it this Thursday if I get to talk to Dr. Durham before tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, if you send me an email, I will certainly make that announcement. So you're looking for some people who want to participate. What are the characteristics that you're looking for?
Basically, I don't want to include anyone who has a known serious illness. If they're on 15 drugs, I don't want to include them because almost every drug in the world will raise your adrenomedullin level. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But reasonably healthy people at almost any age who just want to show that their lifestyle is paying off.
Mm-hmm. What about people who are on blood pressure regulator type medicines.
I wouldn't rule them out because I think it will not only help bring your blood pressure down, but help you get off that junk.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, I consider antihypertensive drugs part of the junk, almost as bad as McDonald's.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, that sounds wonderful. So I'll report that on the air for those who are interested in participating. And the maximum number of people is 50. Okay, but that you have to subtract one for you, one for me, one for my mom, one for Mrs. Finelli.
Right. Yeah. We've got about 10 already, so 40 more.
Yeah,
and they do have to call and make an appointment to see me at 351-5221.
351. One more time, please.
5221.
That's area code 417-351-5221.
No, 5221.
Okay, area code 417, right?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. 417-351-5221. Yeah.
Correct. Okay, very good. And that's to call Dr. Norman Shealy and chat with him about doing this. Okay. Well, I'm excited about that, Dr. Shealy. And that's in Springfield, Missouri.
That is right.
Okay.
Right there in the center of Springfield, 2840 East Chestnut.
Are you having any meetups starting up this year?
Yes, we are going to start sometime. In fact, as soon as I know, I'll want to have one evening just about this, and it'll be on Monday evenings.
Okay, Monday meetups. Okay. All right. I've got those notes written down. Dr. Shealy, I was in Sam's Club and I saw in one of the aisles Planters peanuts. This is not an advertisement for Planters peanuts, but I saw a large container of them, salted peanuts. And I know that you've talked about fast food being a handful of nuts and some fruit. Would you consider salted peanuts, that the kind that Planters and others offer for sale, would that be considered some of the nuts that you're talking about?
Yes. Peanuts are not quite as good as walnuts. Walnuts are sort of the cream of the crop as far as their antioxidant benefits. But all nuts, and peanuts, of course, are really a legume, as are cashews, but they're called nuts. But peanuts do protect your heart.
Okay, even if they're oiled, not dry roasted?
Well, if the oil was real oil and not hydrogenated oil, yes.
Okay.
You need to read the label carefully because hydrogenated oil is poison. That causes trans fats.
Avoid hydrogenated oils.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'm just writing some notes down. Okay. One of the things that I was looking at on the internet, there was an article, and it was about people who drank probably way more than they should. And I was looking at their physiques, and they weren't all as lean and trim as they might otherwise be. Is there a link between consumption of alcohol, and I'm not talking just about beer, I'm talking about mixed drinks, vodka, whiskey, scotch, all those things, cordials, and weight gain. Is there a link between that? Does it reflect a lifestyle? Does it reflect just the alcohol consumption, or is there no link?
Well, there is a link. Alcohol is a carbohydrate. So when you take in any alcoholic beverage, it's like taking pure sugar as far as metabolism is concerned. Now, as with everything else in life, moderation. If you are not overweight, if you're reasonably normally active, if you really eat your fruit, at least 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day, that kind of thing, then I think a drink, not 2 or 5 drinks, is fine.
And Dr. Shealy, you have a policy that if you are going to have alcohol, one glass of alcohol, you will not have it alone. Why is that?
Well, it's just part of being conscientious and not letting yourself get out of control. And the reason is, it is so easy to say, oh, that was good, I'll have another drink. And you don't know, I am not an addictive personality, and I don't want to become that. But I just wouldn't take a chance that, to me, besides, in general, I consider a drink something you do as part of a social evening.
Sure.
And to do it by yourself, well, I mean, there's nobody to socialize with.
Mm-hmm. And that's an interesting point because in the past, when I had a job, I would know some guys who were single, and they were single for lots of different reasons, and they would drink more than people who were not single, and they traveled a lot. Some of these guys, and they'd go out and they'd end up at that hotel, and next thing they'd be in the bar in the hotel, and they would have one and then two, and then pretty soon it added up to a problem where way too much money was being spent on alcohol, and they became out of shape, and it became almost like a ritual that they'd go out, they'd travel for the company, they would go to the hotel, and they'd be alone, and they would drink, and it just built upon itself. And I guess what you're saying is you will not let that happen.
No, I think it's, actually, let's face it, it's an indication of being lonely and trying to bury it.
Very good point. Very good point. So, all right.
I don't think that's a good solution to being lonely.
So, all right. So, for those who might have the potential to be lonely, what do they do? What do they do to not be lonely? What do they do to? Well, we know what they can do to avoid.
They should exercise more. They should take up some kind of physical activity. And for the single people, that may well mean going to a gym where you can do it with other people. And I think, of course, they should also practice detachment from that. They should seek companionship at an organization that they believe in or a religion that they believe in. In the year before I got married,
hold that thought. Hold that thought. Hold that thought, Dr. Shealy.
Okay.
We're going into a break. Class, Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, and if you'd like to go to his website, normshealy.com, normshealy.com, and you get the same newsletter that I get multiple times per week, absolutely free. Just go to normshealy.com. Dr. Shealy, as we're going into the break, you were talking about avoiding being lonely, and you mentioned the year before you were married, and then we went into the break.
Well, I wasn't lonely because I was too busy in my residency to be lonely, but I was tired of what I call the dating game. The idea of dating someone that wasn't potentially a long-term mate just to me was boring. And so I must have dated 25 or more people in that year. Every weekend that I was off, I had a new date looking for the right person. And when they'd open the door, I knew they weren't the right person. Not that they weren't attractive and that sort of, they just didn't have the energy. And then, so once I met Charlie, that was it. I knew right away, and that was the wisest decision I ever made in this life.
So, Dr. Shealy, when a person is searching for that ultimate mate, that lifelong companion, what are the characteristics that someone should look for? I know that my mom mentioned to me many years ago when I was a teenager, a late teenager, she said that one of the things that you should look for is someone who can grow as you grow. So assuming that I would learn more and become more successful at whatever it is that I was working on, studying, whatever, that my mate would be able to stay in lockstep. Is that something that you would agree?
Absolutely. Basically, it's an energetic thing that's hard to describe, a feeling, if you will, of compatibility. And it's obviously it's not sexual attraction, because sex is sex unless it's with the right person. I'd rather masturbate. I mean, it just isn't worth doing. And so you look for compatibility and somebody who's not unhappy already. Good grief. And not trying to rescue somebody who's got bad health habits or bad personality habits. And that's the worst thing in the world you can do, is try to rescue somebody from their problem. If they've got a problem before you're married, it'll multiply after you're married. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have people who have some problem in it and everything else in the personality is right, but you have to be careful about that kind of thing. And so it has to be a level that's socially, educationally, energetically, physically, all of those
financially
things. Yeah, all similar.
Mm-hmm.
And well, you and I, we lucked out.
We did. And I know for an absolute fact that Mrs. Finelli is not going to go shopping, just go out shopping and then come home and say, "Hey, Vin, look at your new car. I just got you this new Jeep, Corvette, SUV, truck, whatever." It's not going to happen. I know it's not going to happen. And she's not going to get that same surprise either, because we're in this together, and it's not my money. It's our money. It's our family's resources. And I know for a fact that she's not even going to go to the store, like to a paint store or a big box store, and say, "Hey, look at this. This is the 5 gallons of paint that I bought, so we can paint the house, inside or outside. Or here's the new trim color." That's not going to happen. Even something as simple as a gallon or a quart of paint is not going to happen in our house as a surprise, because she feels and I feel that we'd be living with that color paint, and it should be a family decision. As a matter of fact, it might even include my mom, who lives with us, and our son. What do you think about this color?
Absolutely. Compatibility and similar taste and discussion.
And we're only talking about $10, maybe $15 for, a quart of paint, or maybe $25 for a gallon of paint. But it's the relationship, it's the understanding, it's the sharing, and it's the agreement, and it avoids argument. Class Dr. Norman Shealy is with us, normshealy.com. Bill in Missouri, welcome. You're on the air with Dr. Shealy.
Yes. I was calling for a friend that's embarrassed to call, because it's a pain issue, and it's a woman in desperate need of some help. It's a condition called vestibulitis. Are you familiar with that?
Vestibulitis, oh yes, sure.
Yes. And it's a burning sensation in the groin.
Right.
And she says sometimes it gets unbearable, and the only relief she can ever find is to put some lidocaine on a cotton ball and insert that, and it gets temporary relief.
Now, I presume she has seen a physician or a gynecologist and had a vaginal, exam.
Several.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay, as long as they couldn't find a cause, then that's the kind of thing that we need to look at from a holistic perspective.
Yes. And I've tried to get her to, we live not very far from where your clinic is. I've tried to get her to come see you, but she's just embarrassed.
Good heavens. Well, you've heard me speaking. It's hard to embarrass me.
Yes, I've listened to you for a long, I've even come to your clinic and seen you personally.
I would be delighted to work with her, and but obviously she has to be willing to come in. I mean, it to me, it's a perfectly simple, easy thing to talk about, and I have no problem whatsoever with it. So have her call 351-5221 if she's interested.
Okay. I didn't know if you might have some suggestions in the meantime.
No, I think this is one where we have to look at a wide variety of what's going on in her life. This could be an allergy. It could be a yeast infection. We need to look at a wide variety of what's going on and why. Okay,
because I know she's in her mid-50s and been going on since she was like 12 years old. So.
Okay, then the time has come, the walrus said, to do something about it.
Yes, exactly right. So I will just keep prodding her to make an appointment to come see you then.
That would be perfect. Thank you for calling.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Bill. So, Dr. Shealy, for those who would like to come and visit with you in Springfield, Missouri, that number is 417-351-5221. And can you tell us one more time where your clinic is located?
2840 East Chestnut Expressway. It's 1 block west of KWTO Radio.
Yep, 1 block west of KWTO AM 560 and other radio stations.
Place where we met.
Yeah, that's where Dr. Shealy and I first met, and Dr. Shealy broadcast right from that very studio. He and I broadcasted from the same studio at KWTO for years, and you still do that every Thursday?
2:07 p.m.
2:07 p.m.
29 years behind me.
29?
Yep.
Broadcasting for 29 years. Wow. I don't know many people who have broadcasted for that many years.
You know, I really enjoy it, Vince. People will ask me questions on the air that they would not ask in my office because
isn't that interesting? So, they're anonymous. They're anonymous, but they're heard worldwide because KWTO does stream, and they do stream the broadcasts.
That's right. And to me, the two things that I find most exciting in life are education and research, which ultimately is more education.
Sure. Never ending. And that was a very interesting question that we just got. This woman has been suffering with this pain for 30 years or so.
Yeah, and, almost 40.
And it's time that she chats with you and gets it to stop. We talked about salted peanuts and alcohol and weight gain. Dr. Shealy, what is chemotherapy? What actually is it? We've almost all of us have heard that term. She is undergoing chemotherapy. He is undergoing chemotherapy. Cancer is being treated with chemotherapy. What actually is it?
Well, it is a chemical that has been thought to be helpful in killing or at least stopping the growth of cancer. Now, anytime you try to kill a cell, even though you're hoping that it'll kill primarily cancer cells, it has negative effects on every cell in your body. And so most people lose hair, they have trouble eating, they get diarrhea, they lose weight. It is ultimately, when it works, the immune system recovers eventually, and some people recover. But I have to tell you, there is no circumstance under which I personally would have chemotherapy. I don't mind dying, but the idea of poisoning my body to that extent is beyond what I could take. Now, what would I do? I would do huge doses, at least 100 grams of vitamin C IV, 5 days a week for at least a month. Now, when you do that, you have to give a few other things to balance the vitamin C. But 100 grams of vitamin C is safe, and often it just boosts your immune system enough that it can be as effective as chemotherapy and infinitely safer.
And what about the cost? Isn't it insignificant as compared to chemotherapy?
Most chemotherapy is pretty expensive, although the insurance mafia does cover it, whereas it probably will not cover the intravenous vitamins. The cost, depending upon the dose of the vitamin C, is going to be about $200. Mm-hmm. And so you take 20 of those, that's about $4,000 for the whole therapy. But I've done it, and I, I like safety as well as efficacy.
And what about the results that you've seen with this type of a therapy, Dr. Shealy?
Well, one of my earliest ones, way back in the late 70s, was a man who had a cancer of the bladder as big as an orange. And in his case, just 10 IVs over a 2-week period led to that cancer disappearing completely. His urologist was furious with him and me.
Wow. His urologist, I guess that he fired his urologist, right?
Right.
Wow. How could he be furious with success?
I'm sorry?
How could he be furious with success?
Because he thought it needs surgery and chemotherapy.
Mm-hmm. What about those who would try it orally, Dr. Shealy? Would they be able to use a large dosage of vitamin C orally?
Most people begin to get diarrhea between 5,000 and 10,000 grams of vitamin C orally. Now, for people who won't consider it IV, I suggest they get the liposomal, that is the fat-soluble vitamin C, because the intestines tolerate that a great deal better. Many people will tolerate at least up to 10 grams of vitamin C as a liposomal product rather than a water-soluble.
So orally, up to 10 grams of liposomal vitamin C. And is that spread out over a day, or is it all in one dosage per day?
Yeah, it comes in both a liquid and a capsule, so you could divide it, and ideally I would try to divide it into 2 or 3 doses at least.
Okay. All right. And are there any...
One other thing.
Yes.
If you do take it orally, you must increase your vitamin B complex. When I talked about giving the 100 grams of, intravenously, that is compensated, if you will, with a lot of extra B vitamins and a few other things to make it totally safe. Anytime you increase your vitamin C intake above 100 milligrams a day, you ought to be sure that you're getting at least an increase in B6. Better just to take, 25 or 50 milligrams of B complex.
25 to 50 milligrams additional of vitamin B complex.
Right.
25 to 50 milligrams. Okay. If greater than 100 milligrams. Okay. Isn't the typical dosage 1,000 milligrams for a large dosage of vitamin C? Don't they come in 1,000 milligram capsules?
Mm-hmm. They do. And you can get them in 60 milligrams. That's so-called recommended daily intake. But way back in the late 70s, Emanuel Saraskin did some wonderful work, and he estimated, even that is almost 30 years ago, that the ideal requirement was at least 1,000 milligrams a day. Now, the reason that you don't want to take that without increased B6 is that a very small percentage of people will get kidney stones from taking an increased vitamin C unless they compensate with B6. In general, B6 is of all the major, the B1, 2, 3, 6. I call those the basic Bs. The one that is least present in multivitamins and in the food supply is B6. And B6 is necessary for many, many, many different things taking place in the body. So no adult will have any problem taking at least 25 milligrams of B complex a day, ever.
And do you recommend that for just about everybody?
I'm sorry?
Do you recommend that for just about everybody?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
That's what I take.
Sure. Class, Dr. Norman Shealy's with us. Dr. Shealy, I was doing a little bit of research about cancer, and I was talking with a gentleman yesterday on the phone, and he said, cancer is way down. And so I did some research, and it says this year, 564,800 Americans are expected to die of cancer, more than 1,500 people a day. Cancer is the second leading cause of death in the U.S., exceeded only by heart disease. One of every 4 deaths in the United States is from cancer. And since 1990, there have been approximately 5 million cancer deaths. And I explained to this gentleman that when I was young in the 1950s, I remember hearing at my grandmother's house that, there's a family that had cancer over there. That they have someone in the family with cancer, and don't go over there because you might get it. Cancer was deemed, we didn't know exactly what it was. We thought we might be able to catch it by proximity, being in the same room, or through touch or a sneeze, or we didn't know. And it seems now that cancer is everywhere, and we've talked about this many times. Dr. Shealy, would you say that more people are living? Would you say that the survivability is increasing, but we still have more people getting cancer? Is that true?
To some extent, yes, that is true. And I think the major reason is the poisons that the government has allowed to be distributed throughout the world. 550,000 poisons released into the atmosphere every year. Chemical pollution is huge. That is, to me, the basic cause. But the second is McDonald's and all of the junk food and the 80% of the food in the grocery stores that is junk. If you take the junk food and the poisons released in the environment, that accounts for the increased incidence of cancer.
Mm-hmm. There's another post that says there's a lifetime risk of developing cancer. Approximately 39.6% of men and women will be diagnosed with all cancer sites at some point during their lifetime. That's more than a third of us will be diagnosed with some kind of cancer in our lifetime. And that's based on 2010, 2012 data. That's
By
huge,
the way,
Dr.
the
Shealy.
third leading contribution, in addition to junk food and chemical poisons, is obesity. And remember, 2/3 of Americans are now overweight.
Staggering numbers. Absolutely staggering. Dr. Shealy, so since what we're talking about affects 2/3 of us, not you and not me, but 2/3 of all of us, if we look at us collectively, what do we do in a capsule form? What do we do? Obviously, we avoid McDonald's and Burger King and Arby's and and those clones.
And
we avoid eating. Yes.
Well, you avoid eating white sugar. You avoid eating white rice. You avoid eating packaged food that has monosodium glutamate. You avoid food that has trans fats, artificial this, that, or the other. And most important of all is you keep your body mass index between 18 and 24. Mm-hmm. If your body mass index goes up to 25, you already have a slight increase in the incidence of cancer and heart disease. By the time it gets up to 30, with body mass index of 30, no matter what your height is, if you are 40 pounds, minimum 40 pounds overweight, you already have a body mass index of 30, which is considered obesity. And that's 1/3 of Americans who are truly plain obese or fat. And I realize this is insulting them. But damn it, do they want to be healthy, or do they want to die early and suffer doing it?
We'd love to see more of our friends stick around for a lot longer. So, class, please take this advice seriously. Dr. Shealy and I'll be right back after top of the hour news and commercial announcements. And here's what's on my list: how to take your own blood pressure. What equipment do we need? Overdosing on vitamins, is that possible? Why do we snore? Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares with Dr. Norman Shealy. Second hour today. And if you'd like to contact Dr. Shealy, you may at norm@normshealy.com. Norm as in Norman. norm@normshealy.com. And you can sign up for the same newsletter that I get multiple times per week, absolutely free. Dr. Shealy, I was thinking about blood pressure, and a lot of us are concerned about our blood pressure. Is there, I know that you can buy these electronic gadgets, and you can put them around your arm and press a button, and it will take your blood pressure. But are they as accurate as if blood pressure were taken manually? Because I notice in most doctors' offices, a nurse or a nurse practitioner will come in, take your blood pressure mechanically with that hand pump and the stethoscope. What are your thoughts?
Well, interestingly, Vince, I have cross-checked these a number of times, and I would say they are accurate, the little automated ones. I use it because it is quicker. I have one for the wrist in some people where it's difficult to get the upper arm because of the clothing. And the wrist one even works adequately in my experience.
Okay. Now, for those who are preparedness-minded and think, maybe I might not be able to get batteries and, whenever I want, maybe the supply chain may fail, and they want to go completely manual, what equipment would you recommend?
Well, you need an oral thermometer. I think that's always at the top of my list because fever is perhaps more common than other such problems. I think it would be wise to have a blood pressure cuff, one of the automated ones. And I mean, they're fairly inexpensive now. Then that raises some very interesting questions. I think you should have aspirin on hand unless you know that you can't tolerate aspirin. Of all the anti-inflammatories that are over the counter, I think it is actually safer than the so-called NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatories. I think that you probably ought to have on hand Pepto-Bismol. It'll keep for years and years and years, the little ones that you put in the mouth, not as a liquid, but the tablets or whatever. I think you ought to have alcohol, rubbing alcohol. I think you ought to have iodine. Now, personally, of course, I keep the 7% iodine, which you can only get from a veterinary supply house. You can't get it at a regular drugstore, which is 3%. But 7.5% iodine is much, much better to have on hand. I think you should have triple antibiotic ointment. It's, it's useful for minor skin irritations, infections, etc. Beyond that, I suppose the single most important thing is if you are on a prescription drug, well, I would try to get a 6-month supply at a time, and when it gets down to about a month or 6 weeks level, replenish it for a 6-month supply. If you're on any kind of excellent supplement, like a good B complex, the one I take is Dr. Shealy's Essential. I think you should have a 6-month supply of those kinds of things. Let's face it, nobody knows when the next general and national or regional emergency will take place. Interestingly, if you don't have some alternative source of energy, I would do a lot of canned food, home canned, which is really, I don't know why we call it canning because it's in a jar. But for instance, I'm getting my big freezer down in size so that I can have a beefalo butchered, and I'm canning a lot of stuff for the dogs and for myself out of my freezer that I would prefer to have frozen, but in order to make room for the beefalo, I got to make room in my freezer, that kind of thing. Band-Aids, of course, some tape, some gauze sponges. I can't think of anything else at the moment.
Okay, let me just review this for those who might have been taking notes. An oral thermometer, blood pressure cuff, aspirin, Pepto-Bismol, rubbing alcohol, iodine at 7%, which is only available at your veterinarian or veterinarian supply, triple antibiotic ointment, or antibiotic or antiseptic?
Antibiotic, yeah. It's 3 antibiotics for local skin stuff.
Okay. 6 months supply of prescription medicines that you absolutely must take. 6 months supply of Dr. Shealy's Essentials. Gauze, tape, and home canned food, which is putting your contents in jars. Okay. I agree with all that. Now, for those who would like to take their blood pressure manually with a stethoscope, can you describe that process? How is it done?
Well,
I know you pump up the cuff.
It has a little, most of them have an arrow or some indication of where you want to place it. The place you want to place it is over the medial, which means the part up from your little finger at the elbow. So just at the elbow, the artery, the major artery. Wait a minute. I gotta do this. I'm so accustomed to doing it. I have to. No, you place it. No, the best artery is up from your thumb, right over the bend of the elbow, and that's where the monitor goes for the stethoscope, which you place under the cuff after you've tightened the cuff. And then you pump up the blood pressure cuff to a pressure above 160. No matter what you think the blood pressure is going to be, if you think it's normal, you go up to 160, and then you you release the pressure in the bulb very slowly so that you can watch the beating of the heart as it comes down, because somewhere between 140 and 120 in almost everybody, you will begin to hear the pulsing of the heartbeat. And then you take it down until that disappears, and that's the diastolic, the lower level. The upper level where you first hear it is the systolic, and when it disappears is the diastolic. And the diastolic is more important than the systolic. In fact, the diastolic should be somewhere between 70 and 80 generally. The systolic, the ideal is 120, but up to 140, I wouldn't worry. That's the way you do the blood pressure.
Okay, so let me see if I've got this. We put the blood pressure cuff on, and we put the stethoscope right under the blood pressure cuff. We pump it up to about 160. We slowly release the pressure, and we listen for the first beat we hear. The first beat we hear is the top number, or the systolic, and we slowly release the pressure until we don't hear the beat anymore, and that is the diastolic. And we're looking for something 120 or so, but a maximum of 140 for the upper number, the systolic, and somewhere between 70 and 80 as the lower number.
Now, if you want to feel that pulse, by the way, I just did it. You know, I'm so accustomed to it's automatic in I'm doing this for 60 plus years. The pulse that you're feeling is, you can put your finger on that without the blood pressure cuff on, and that pulse is straight up from the little finger with your palm straight out, straight up from your little finger, not the big finger, and you can feel it. It's a very strong pulse right there, just as above, barely above the crease in the elbow.
Okay. And so I was looking up the cost of manual equipment, and I see a blood pressure cuff sphygmometer, $26.98 on the internet. I see an automated one that you just read the display at $59.98. I've also seen some of those much lower in the $30 neighborhood. So for around $50 or less, it looks like you can have the equipment you need, but that's without the stethoscope if you go manually. Now, what would you recommend for a stethoscope? Is there one type that's better than another? Is there a brand that you like? What would you recommend for those of us who want to do this ourselves?
Allen is the standard. It has been for many, many decades. WELCHALLYN.
Okay. All right. And is there a style that we should look for?
For someone who's not medically oriented, I don't think the style matters that much. You don't need actually the one that flips over where you have what's called a bell as well as a diaphragm. You only need the diaphragm to measure blood pressure or listen to the heart.
Okay. In the few seconds of this segment remaining, is this something that most families should have?
It's a good idea. It is a safety feature.
Right. Okay. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we come back. Dr. Norman Shealy is with us. Class, Dr. Norman Shealy is with us. And so I went to eBay, Dr. Shealy, and I was looking up blood pressure cuffs. And I see them for $10. I've seen some for $5. I've seen some for $20. So they're very, very inexpensive. And I've also seen some electronic, automated, digital wrist blood pressure devices, machines. And I'm looking at one. It's $13, 17 bids. It's got an hour left. Maybe it'll go to $20. I see one you can buy for less than $18 with free shipping. So you can get these very inexpensively. Now, when you get into the stethoscope, then you can spend a little bit more money. But I did see one for a diaphragm stethoscope for $4.74. Then I saw the 3M Littman brand between $40 and $50 all the way up to over $200. And then I saw the Welch Allen. You could get one of theirs for $35 all the way up to $270. So you can spend a significant amount of money, over a couple $100 on a stethoscope. Dr. Shealy, can you tell us, what do you get if you spend if you spend the $50 or so, what does the extra $200 get you? Is there anything that we would need as lay people?
No. There are many, many, many variations with all kinds of specialized and enhancement, if you will, features that someone who's not a physician or nurse really doesn't need.
Okay. All right. So, and I think your advice was that as a preparation kind of a thing, a tool to see what's going on in the future, that this is something that we should consider. Is that correct? Because I certainly want to get one. Okay. And, class, I have a stethoscope that I have in our automotive shop. And what it is it looks like what you envision as a stethoscope, but it's a little different on the end. Instead of a diaphragm, a small diaphragm or a bell, it has a long rod, about 2 feet long, a steel rod coming out of the end of it. And what I do is if I hear a sound in an engine and I'm trying to figure out where that sound is coming from, is it coming from a bearing in the front? Is it a valve lifter? Is it a rod bearing? What is that noise? Is it coming from the alternator? Is it coming from the power steering pump? Where actually is it? I can actually touch the point that I think the sound might be coming from, and I can isolate where the problem is with this automotive type stethoscope. So I think that if you extrapolate that out, it makes sense for at least our family to have a manual and maybe even an automated blood pressure testing equipment. So that's something I think is more important than going to a movie. Okay, Dr. Shealy, is it possible for someone to overdose on vitamins? So,
well, yeah,
yeah, okay.
Vitamin C is one of the ones where anything over 1,000 milligrams you should be careful, absolutely careful, to have adequate B6 or B complex. In general, if the label says take 1, I wouldn't take 3. I mean, most of these supplements, I do take a lot of supplements. I'm not sure that I need all of them. It's something that's sort of accumulated over the years. I've added to them, but I can't. I'm just going to walk in the other room and look at my bottle. I believe that every single one of them has on it a suggested dose, and I can't imagine one not having that. Obviously, it's something that I don't have to read because I know what I'm taking, but every one of them has serving size is when it says one vegetable capsule, that kind of thing. And so,
okay.
If it says 1, I wouldn't take 10.
Okay, but might you take 2?
You aren't going to get in trouble taking 2 in most things. I mean, chlorine.
So common sense. Common sense. We'll be right back. Dr. Norm Shealy's with us, and I'd like to ask about snoring. Why is it that we snore? We'll be right back. We'll snore, and what is it? Why do people snore?
Well, there are many reasons. It's anatomy, if you will. It's the sort of the relaxation of the back of your throat greater than normal, or some abnormality in the way it's formed. Now, people who drink alcohol are more likely to snore. People who are overweight are more likely to snore. People who have a cold or any kind of inflammation, congestion, etc. in the throat, and all of those are more likely. And finally, for some people, just lying on your back. A lot of people like to sleep on their back. You're 10 times more likely to snore lying on your back than if you lie on your side.
Is there a concern that medically about snoring? Is it indicative of something that could be serious or not?
No.
Do we know?
In general, it is not a disease. Now, there's something called sleep apnea, where people breathe like, and they stop for maybe a minute even, or half a minute. And that can be a very serious problem. Again, a huge majority of people with sleep apnea are overweight.
Okay. What about when people sleep, they make the sound like a puffing sound, like
It's sort of not quite the same as snoring, but it's, there's just a little bit more relaxation in those muscles back in the back of the throat that allow that to happen. Not a problem.
Okay. We've got Kyle in Montana. Welcome, Kyle.
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, Dr. Shealy.
Thank you for the compliment, gentlemen.
With your blood pressure thing, there's something that's always kind of interested me. As an example, I'm about 5'10", about 215 pounds. I take an herbal supplement that I make with garlic, cayenne, bilberry, about 13 different herbs that are in there, kelp and all that. And my blood pressure, I smoke about half a pack a day. That's about my max. Sometimes, most of the time, around 6 or 7. But my blood pressure runs are like 106 over 58. And what I'm wondering is, I do smoke organic cigarettes, but in any case, what I'm curious about, I'm not trying to justify it, but nevertheless, is what I am concerned about or just curious about is it possible to have blocked arteries and still have blood pressure like at 106 over 58?
Oh, yes. There's only one simple and safe test to know whether you are building up plaque or hardening of the arteries. It's called a calcium score. It's a CAT scan of the heart that gives you the amount of calcium deposited in the arteries of your heart. The range in the country is roughly $100 to $600 for that test. And personally, I think all men ought to have it not later than age 50, and all women ought to have it by age 60.
Okay, so if a person were to have, and you call this a what again, a calcium what?
Score, S-C-O-R-E.
Oh, okay, calcium score. Okay, and if a person has a higher, what is high and then what is low, but also then if you had that, is there a way to reverse that?
Well, the standard way to reduce that is something called chelation. Chelation is usually done intravenously, and it takes about 30 treatments over a period of 6 months or so, but that can reverse coronary artery disease. Another one called ECP, or external counterpulsation, also can dissolve the calcium in the heart arteries, again, safely. Both of those procedures are not done by your average physician because they're greedy, and it doesn't cost but about $4,500 maximum for the treatment versus $150,000 for coronary bypass surgery.
Okay, and so as far as you know, there's no supplements or anything along those lines that will reduce that
well,
calcium?
EDTA can be taken orally. There's not good research on that. You have to take it very cautiously because it can cause diarrhea or cramping. But it is available as a liquid, take so many drops a day. And it may work, although, again, we have a $30 million study supporting intravenous chelation. We just don't have an adequate published study on oral chelation.
Okay. Could you explain something to me then? How is it that blood pressure could be low if a person I don't know because I've never had this calcium score, but how is it that a person could have low blood pressure or good blood pressure and still have a calcium buildup in their arteries?
Well, everybody is a unique individual, and their genetic factors and their physical factors. But let's put it this way, Carl. With your weight, which is, significantly over an ideal for your height, and even smoking 6 to 10 cigarettes a day, I will bet you the cost of your calcium score test that you've got calcium deposits in your arteries.
Okay.
Now, that is not true of 100% of people. I have, measured a couple of scores of people, and I would say in my personal experience, by age 50, about 90% of people have some calcium men have some calcium in the heart arteries.
Okay, and what is a high score and what is a low score?
Well, any, to me, is a high score, but a real high, it can go from a score of 50 to a score of 3,000. That's the range, more or less.
Okay. And so if a person, so do you, I'm assuming you've had that done, and I'm wondering, what is your calcium score?
It is high, and I have no symptoms, and I have normal blood pressure. But, it's partly, I presume, genetic. I have been working for about a year and a half on another way that I don't know yet whether or not it will reduce calcium in the arteries. One of those is using pulsed electromagnetic field therapy plus crushed sapphire crystal. The evidence is that I've done some reduction, but not as much as I would like in that period of time, but it's safe and it's simple. I'm also about to do an experiment with people who've got calcium deposits in the arteries where we're exposing them to at least 36 hours of scalar, another form of electrical therapy, which may also help reduce that calcium, but it's not proven yet.
Okay, and is this EDPA, is that available like health food stores?
No. In general, I've never seen it at a health food store. You can get it on the internet.
Okay.
And that's EDTA, is that correct?
That is correct, EDTA. I've never learned how to pronounce it, so the individual words. It's sodium something or other.
All right. Well, it's very informative, Vince, as usual, you and Dr. Shealy. I appreciate your program very much. Thanks, guys.
Well, I would strongly recommend both a homocysteine, a blood test, again, because of your smoking and you're overweight. That's a simple blood test. That one's easily reversible with certain supplements, and I would certainly strongly recommend a calcium score as a baseline to advise you of what to do.
Okay, homocysteine test and a calcium score.
Right.
All right,
Kyle. I've got a question for you, Kyle. Have you tried to quit smoking?
Yeah, a couple times. I have, and it's just I find it more in reality. It's more of a mental habit than anything. And it's not, you figure, 6 to 10 a day is not much, but dealing with the pain that I deal with because of the derivative multiple sclerosis I've got, it just calms me down. And like I said, and I think it's more mental. I've thought about it many times.
Well, so let's pursue this, if you don't mind, a little bit more, Kyle. Dr. Shealy, I have heard people who smoke say that there's a calming effect, but actually it increases blood pressure, doesn't it?
Usually.
So is this mind over matter? There's a calming effect? Because
nicotine is a narcotic. It is related. Most people, in fact, believe that it is as addicting as heroin. Now, 50% of smokers can quit and have no major symptoms. Another 50% have severe withdrawal symptoms. So nothing's, I always say, we can't even tell whether you're dead or alive without going to Supreme Court. Nothing affects us 100% except total poison.
What? So when someone is addicted and he or she tries to quit, what are the symptoms of this withdrawal? That the common symptoms that would nervousness,
anxiety, a tremor, sweating, nausea, all of these things, can be part of it.
Do you recommend gradual withdrawal or cold turkey?
With cigarettes, it has been proven beyond any reasonable doubt that cold turkey is the only way that works.
Kyle, any further questions?
No, thanks, Ben.
Hey, Kyle, thanks so much for the card. Thanks for your friendship. Thanks for being an instructor. And thanks for calling in today. Dr. Shealy and I'll be right back. Dr. Shealy, I was reading an article. I can't find it on the internet the last couple of days, and it was about dim lighting and sleeping in dim lighting and how it can be harmful to the body because the body works best when we sleep in darkness.
That is true. Any light in the room diminishes the quality of your sleep, except red. In other words, if you have an electric clock or anything like that, it should have a red light, not a blue or a green or a white light. Other than that, no light whatsoever in the bedroom.
Mm-hmm. And that's the color of the display on the clock that we have in the bedroom. It's been red for a couple decades, and it's an old Sony clock radio that is used as an alarm. And by the way, I don't need an alarm because I've trained myself, as you recommended that I could, to just get up, and I do.
Exactly. I don't need an alarm either. Nevertheless, a friend gave me something called Alexa. It's one of those things that you can talk to it and it will play music or listen to the radio or whatever. Mm-hmm. And 2 years ago, a friend gave me an Alexa for Christmas. And so if I really have to get up unusually early, I'm usually up at between 4 and 5 anyway. If I have to get up at 3, then I will say, Alexa, wake me at 3 a.m. And it will.
I was reading a story about a device that's connected to the internet, and this young girl, I would think I'm guessing, but I think less than 10 years old, was talking to one of those internet connected type devices like that you can talk to, and she accidentally ordered a shipment of very expensive cookies and I think a playhouse, and it arrived. and I guess now the question is that something that they have to pay for? Or do they send it back, or how does that work when something like that happens?
Well, I imagine that depends on the individual seller.
Yeah. Magnesium, Dr. Shealy, you have a product that you offer, magnesium lotion, and you've mentioned on the air that it's more difficult for the body to absorb magnesium as a supplement orally than through the skin. What type of magnesium should be absorbed, and what do you recommend we do to make sure that we have enough magnesium?
It's magnesium chloride. We found that the magnesium chloride is considerably better absorbed through the skin than magnesium sulfate, which is Epsom salt. I can't tell you why, because once it's in solution, it shouldn't make a difference. But the magnesium chloride is far better absorbed through the skin than it is through the mouth. Magnesium deficiency is rampant. About 80% of Americans are low in magnesium. because it's deficient in our soil. Our soil has been, overworked, if you will, without replacement of the magnesium. As a cattle farmer, I think we've mentioned this before, you've got to give magnesium supplements to your cattle or they die of grass staggers.
Absolutely.
And the vegetable and fruit farmers don't put it in the soil of the vegetables and fruit, so that your commercially raised fruits and vegetables are deficient in magnesium. Now, on my farm, where I have, used nothing but compost for the last 34 years, I don't have to worry about magnesium deficiency in my soil because it's got plenty of it.
Should we compost banana peels?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We can compost almost anything.
All right.
Wood.
Can you overdose?
Can even compost wood.
Can you overdose on magnesium, Dr. Shealy?
Oh, yes. If you overdose, you'll get diarrhea.
Any other symptoms?
Probably not, because it'll let you know soon enough when you've overdosed.
Great. Dr. Shealy, thank you so much for being with us. I look forward to spending 2 hours with you next Wednesday.
Always a pleasure, Ben. Thanks.
Dr. Shealy, thank you so much. And class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.